much. Wow, this is cool and very cramped. Yeah, my name is McElvaney. The Idiot Entrepreneur thing is that I write a blog called idiotentrepreneur.com. Why do I do that? I kind of have this view that if you are an entrepreneur, you must be an idiot. Because while Fraser talks in exceptionally articulate and eloquent terms about all of the successes, there is no doubt that being an entrepreneur, starting a business from your kitchen, or as I did as well, actually, vertical started in my kitchen too. So starting from there and growing a business into something that is like a business is very, very difficult. And there are a lot of knockbacks along the way, and it's tough. So my view is that a little bit of you at least must be an idiot. So I thought I would talk to you today about not jam. Yeah. So I thought rather than stand up and tell you about all of the good things that there are about being me, about doing my job, I thought I'd just sort of take a little bit of a look back about what my journey's been over the last 5 years and tell you about all of the things that actually, standing up here, I'm glad I didn't know, because if I'd known all these things, I probably wouldn't have listened to it. Anyway, so it's not really good to me. But hopefully some of this might be of some use to you. In terms of our story, we started Learning Pool in 2006 as an online learning community for the public sector. We've grown the business pretty aggressively, and we're now the biggest provider of e-learning services to local government in the UK. We employ 50 people by some freak. And we've done all that from our base here in Derry. Okay. First thing I'm glad I didn't know how difficult it was to generate revenue, particularly in the web space. I meet loads and loads of startup companies who've got products, a lot of apps and gadgets and widgets for this and for that. They've got loads of good ideas. They've got amazing brands. They've got incredible ideas and innovation in the product, and the one thing that they are missing is revenue. Growing revenue is really hard because it's hard to sell. It's hard to sell to people on the web, and a lot of entrepreneurs these days don't really want to sell, so they want to say, we're going to put this on the web, and people are just going to buy it because it's going to be so good and so incredibly compelling that they're just going to buy it. My view is, frankly, that's bullshit. Selling is the key bit of being an entrepreneur. Fraser had to sell to a market that is really, really hard to sell to. Going and getting a buyer in the supermarket to even talk to you is almost impossible. So you've got to sell it every single day. And I think that's something that entrepreneurs do sort of miss. Entrepreneurs focus a lot on the innovation of the product, the gorgeousness of the design, all of that sort of stuff. Actually getting it onto the supermarket shelf, or if you're on the web, getting it onto the web in a way that people can buy it is very challenging. The other bit about revenue is that it's hard to keep it, particularly, so the only thing I know about is online. And it's really hard to keep revenue online, so it's not that difficult to sell an iPhone app for 59p. But you've got to sell a lot of those to make enough money to pay the bills and keep yourself in jam. The really hard bit about doing business online is about building into your revenue model that you've got some recurring revenue. So what we've done at Learning Pool is that everything we sell is a subscription. All of our services are subscription revenue, and that's good in lots of ways. It's bad in a few ways. So if a customer becomes a Learning Pool subscriber tomorrow, they pay us some money, but it's nowhere near enough to cover our cost of acquisition of customers or whatever. But the good thing is that they will pay us next month, and the month after that, or the year after that, and they'll be with us until we stop offering the product. So building a subscription revenue model, or building some sort of revenue model that gives you the ability to generate recurring revenue, I think, is the secret sauce and really helps the business scale a bit. Yeah. The next thing I'm glad I didn't know is that banks are really weird and they don't understand a thing. Not a thing. Why I didn't realise this was because whenever we started Learning Pool, I was like, well, it's a great business. It's got a recurring revenue model. Our market spends £500 million a year on training, and we can help them save money. What's not to like? What I didn't realise was that the people I was going to see in banks were pretty much like my dad. He doesn't really understand anything about the internet. He doesn't really care about anything on the internet, and he thinks, and he could be right, he thinks that it's all a big lie. So the banks in the UK for sure do not understand how web businesses work. They understand how shops work, they understand how farming works, they understand how you can finance cars and other bits of crap, but they don't understand the web. So making the bank understand is the key bit. One of the terms that's often used is that your role is to explain, not to complain. You cannot whinge and moan and complain about the banks, because it won't make them any different. There is a man in the First Trust in Dungannon whose ears are still ringing from the time that I told him where to go. But it did me no good. I shouldn't have bothered. It was a stupid thing to do. I shouldn't have told him to fuck off. I should have just explained my product to him a bit better. Because once we did that at Learning Pool, actually, once we sat down and said, okay, let's talk this through. You're my dad, I'm trying to explain how the remote control works. Okay, let's go back to that sort of level. And I explained and explained and explained. We showed the guy our products, and then he got it. All of a sudden, the penny dropped. He got it. He got the fact that Learning Pool was a business that could succeed. Now, he still didn't give us any money. Not that day, or the day after. But about 6 months later, whenever we came back and said, okay, here was that plan that you thought was crazy for a business you didn't understand, but we've actually delivered against that, and here's the next opportunity. Now you give us some money. And then he sort of said half no, he gave us half of the money we needed, and we were able to bootstrap the business from there. So that's the other thing. Banks don't know what to talk about. So recruitment. Recruitment is another thing that has been a real journey for me. We've built a team of 50 people. I have probably, in the last 5 years, interviewed about 1,000 people. We've also probably hired more than 50 people who have come in and gone back out. Recruitment is a really black art, and for a web business, whenever you're creating a company that essentially sells fresh air, so you don't sell a product that you can put on the shopping store supermarket shelf, you don't sell a thing that you can hand to somebody, you sell them a login or a password. You need a team who are driven, who are committed, who are capable of doing what you need them to do. And I don't have any really good answers to this. Trial and error is probably the best I can offer in terms of how to recruit a high-performing team. But what I do know is that it is unbelievably important for a small growing web company. I hear stories about companies who hire 8,000 people in 4 years, and my blood runs cold. But as a sort of startup, bootstrap startup in the northwest, where the talent pool is rich but not deep, perhaps you'd say. Recruitment is very challenging indeed, but important to get right. Mary and I, who run Learning Pool, probably spend 20% of our time on recruitment today. It's something that we're always doing, and we always recruit, even though we not always have a role. So our approach to this is, if you've got a person who's right, then you have to get them into the company. You have to work out a way to pay them in the short term, and they will find their own place in the business, because the business that they're coming into is not the business that you want them to work in, because that business needs to be a lot bigger to justify bringing all these people in. You have to be able to count. I couldn't count whenever I started Learning Pool, or at least I didn't want to. I had this view whenever I started Learning Pool that the money side of things would just look after itself, that it didn't really matter. We would just sell stuff, it'd be grand. I very quickly realised that actually counting the important stuff, particularly cash, is absolutely the best way that you can spend your time, sort of the other 20% out of your day. at Learning Pool for the first 3 years, we did daily cash flow analysis. And it was always a very sobering experience. We never had enough. We always had suppliers who were breaking our hearts. We always had revenue that was just a little bit further away than we thought it was going to be. So, you know, the definition of a startup that I like the best is Doug Richard's definition. He says that a startup is something that is likely to fail. How about that for a sobering definition? And it is. The numbers speak for themselves. 250,000 companies set up in the UK in the last 3 years, or whatever it is, and 30,000 of them are still there. The numbers are ridiculously high in terms of how companies that start up just fall apart. My view is that the main reason that those companies fail is not because they're missing out on innovation, not because there are customers who don't want to buy their products, not because they don't have the ability to get those products to market. It's simply that they run out of money and somebody closes them down. So being able to count the numbers for somebody who is a web developer or a creative or an artist or somebody who doesn't really want to, you have to discipline yourself to be able to count. And you have to know what the numbers that are important are to keep an eye on, otherwise it could be good night. Yeah, building a team is awfully difficult. So this is a bit of a follow-on from the recruitment stuff. It's very hard to get the right people into your team. But once you get the right people into your team, you're not finished. One of the big successes that we have, if anyone's on Twitter, you'll probably be spammed a lot by this thing called Team Lovely, which is Mary's idea. We've got a team in Learning Pool that has, I think over the last 6 months, become this incredible force of nature. The team is now, today, a lot bigger than me or Mary. It is its own thing, its own unit. It drives itself. It's incredible. And my job in Learning Pool is now to say, how about we do this? Or could we not just? So my job is to come up with ideas, and the guys just go off and make it happen. That's 5 years on. I can say now that I've done my job. It's been very difficult to get there. And in terms of building a team as an entrepreneur, I think your job is to motivate, to inspire, to lead. But what does that really mean? Does that mean that you come into the office every morning and you stand up at the front of the office and you shout at people? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it is about shouting at people and motivating them to stay there till 2 o'clock in the morning to fix the bug in the web page to get it out because we promised we would tomorrow morning. But most of the time it's just about that iterative flywheel. It's about being there at 7 o'clock in the morning and leaving the office at 8 o'clock at night and setting the tone and showing the team what we all need to be doing to achieve what we all need to achieve. The other reason that building a team is important is because of recruitment. So people come in and go out. So 1 minute you think you've done it, you think the team's fixed, it's there, it's great, it works. And then someone leaves or someone drops out or moves into a different job, and you now have to redo it again. Because the people who were there the last time you did the big motivational talk aren't there anymore, or else there's twice as many of them. We did a team day at Learning Pool last week, and for the first time we had to hire a room in a hotel. It's a bit it's a bit sad really, because the company is now this bigger thing that means that I can't put my hand on all of it at the same time. But it just means that your job as an entrepreneur becomes a different thing where you have to motivate teams of people, not just a single team. So yeah, building a team is really hard. Anyone who tells you different is lying. Yeah. The other thing I'm glad I didn't know is about how hard I'd have to work. And again, being an entrepreneur is it's this year's Chanel handbag. It's this thing that the government and all these sort of cool metrosexual men are telling you is a great thing that everybody should do, and it is. But it's important, I think, to strip back from the sort of glitz and the glamour. When we started Learning Pool, there was no live stream. There were no lights. There was no guitars. There might have been some drums. There was none of the glitz and the glamour, though. And to get us to a stage where we have won the Deloitte Fast 50 Rising Star 2 years in a row, where we've got a team that's working, where we've got a profitable business. It's taken graft and very little else. So, you know, innovation is important, of course it is, but execution is the hardest bit. We won the Seacorn competition for Northern Ireland a couple of years ago, and at the awards dinner it was a keynote from Jerry Keneally. Now, Jerry Keneally's a man who knows how to be an entrepreneur. He sold his business stock buy to Getty Images for $137 million US. It was a company that employed about 20 people and it was based out of a garage in Tralee. And I'm with him on pretty much everything. But on this in particular, his view is that you cannot set up and run a successful startup company on 9 hours a day. You cannot do it. I'm struggling to do it right now in 16 hours a day, and it's been like that for 4 years, 5 years. So, you know, I'm glad that I didn't know how hard it was going to be to do this when I started, but I still would have done it anyway. There was a point about 14 months in where I thought, right, that's it. I'm maxed, I can do no more work. But I would think now I'm about 40% more committed, I'm about 80% more effective, and I'm surviving, despite lack of sleep and all of that. And I'm sure Fraser's example is very the same. Here's the thing, this is a bit of a hobby horse of mine, I suppose. Failure in this country is really frowned upon. If your startup fails, you are sort of a pariah. Now I think that's really wrong, and it's a really, maybe an Irish thing, maybe a UK thing, maybe a European thing. If you do a startup in the States, you're pretty much nobody until you've had at least 3 failures. And I think actually that's a really good thing. Most of these things stop, most of these things fail. Most of the people in the room who are going to set up their own company, I'm really sorry, it's going to fail. But failure doesn't necessarily need to be the end. In this country it's hard to go to the bank and get them to support you if you've had a failed startup before that means people have got burned. I consider this to be a motivator. I talk about failure or the other thing. Sorry, success or the other thing. Whenever we were 18 months in and we had no money, investors wouldn't back us, customers wouldn't buy from us, when we were famously down to our last £157, we had 2 options. It was admit defeat and walk away, or hunker down and brave it out. And we hunkered down and we braved it out, and slowly but surely, gradually, the business turned around, and it became sort of what it is now. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't know that whenever you're in charge, you're not in control in a startup. There are a lot of things in a startup that you can control, but there are many, many more that you can't. You cannot make customers buy from you. You cannot make the bank understand without like a lot of work. You cannot influence the team in the immediate way that you need to. You have to trust that over time, some of this will catch, someone will remember what I'm saying, it'll work, let's keep going. So, yeah, this is the last one. It's bloody scary being an entrepreneur. Whenever you've got your house, your everything you own on the line, it's a scary place to be whenever you miss your numbers, or your revenue doesn't come in as you thought, or one of your senior team walks out because they don't like what you're doing with the business. It's really, really scary. If you're wired in for it, it's fine. You don't really take it in your stride, but you take it. But it is something that I think people who are starting business for the first time don't really understand. Something that I certainly didn't understand. I thought it would be pink and fluffy, and it really wasn't. It really wasn't every day. I suppose the thing that I'm interested in talking about. So that's it. They're my stories. They're my lessons. My view is that there are loads and loads and loads of amazing reasons to start up your business. I would encourage anybody to do it. I think everybody should try it. But there are some reasons there are some things that are bad. There are the things that that you sometimes don't see. And hopefully, if any of that makes any sense to anybody, you'll make yourself a better startup. It's a roller coaster. What do you do?